This guy's so much more zoomed. Hey, Donna Marie. Whoa. Let's hope this doesn't shut off on us again. So many technical things. Before I get going, I'm just going to pull the camera out so you can see the intensity of the setup. I have a microphone attached to me going to my bass amp from home. Here, I'll show you guys. Here's my bass amp. Right there. To help the voice, bass amp, just to help the voice project a little more. Rather silly. Three minutes, and the monkey will start dancing. This makes this really inviting. 3 minutes. Hello, 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 waving. Hello, I can't read. Instagrammers, in order for this video to not be flipped and everything reversed, I can't read your comments, but I'll look at them within each break. Oh, it's almost time. Clean the Lord. Why would I start this class at this time? Believe it or not, I was born at this time, at least that's what it says on my birth certificate. But I know all of you have had the experience where you've looked at the clock and you've seen all the numbers line up. And for me, whenever I see that, which is twice a day, I make a wish. So I'm glad you can join me today. It's very strange because I've been teaching a long time and in front of people, but I am shaking and jittering. There's butterflies turning in my stomach for some reason, even though there's no one here. that this live stream situation makes me really nervous, and it makes me think I'm going to swear or something, like in front of kids, which I don't do. However, I guess it's like stage fright, like going out, being pushed out in front of thousands of people. And for some reason, I would rather be pushed out in front of actual real people than on this live stream situation. That being said, let's get the show on the road. Today, we're going to continue on from our drawing last week, where we built up the structure, basic shapes and forms, to create masses in which to build shadows. Today, I want us to dive in deep. We're going to need the skeleton. We're going to need references. I'm going to show you guys what some of those are. We're going to, in a way, dissect and take apart the skeleton so we can understand what's within. Now, when we first draw the structure, we're often drawing structures that are based around contours. But I want you to learn to see where the landmarks are and to draw and study the anatomy that we can't see, because it will help us understand where the muscles attach. The origins and insertions of the muscles are on the bones. So it's like we're going to put on our x-ray specs. So I'm going to show you some of the references that I highly recommend. If you don't have references and you're going to continue on this drawing, just go on the internet. There's tons out there. I have so many art reference books that it's numbing and I can't get anything done. So I want to narrow things down for you. All of these things are available at Amazon. I put a link, an affiliate link, on my website just in hopes to make 5 or 10 cents here. But this book is the first and most important one I think I'll recommend. It's about $25. It breaks down all the bones individually. So we're going to use some of this for reference. Now, it is by Dr. Paul Richard, who was at the École des Beaux-Arts in France, and he trained one of my anatomy heroes, whose name is also on this, Robert Beverly Hale. We're going to be using the measurements of cranial masses today. Last week and the week before, we talked a little bit about them, but we were really focusing on Mr. Andrew Loomis, whose book is up there, and using those basic head proportions. I want to use a smaller proportion of cranial mass. So I brought out my cranial. This one just came out of the plastic, and it's easier to take this off than to dislocate Fred Astaire's head. That cranial mass I will also represent by this sphere. And when I'm drawing it on the board, I found a little doggy dish, which is the exact same size and looks like a cool little hat that I'll be able to use to make these references. We are going to essentially deconstruct the skeleton, and then in the second half, I'll change the camera setup and actually do the drawing on the pages that we have already built on. But let's quickly go back to references. I got this book by Walter Foster when I was like 12, and inside it is our goal: to draw the figure outlined based off the drawing that we've already made, with the skeleton inside. And I'm going to break down how to draw the skeleton parts more easily, so that on your own time you're welcome to draw all the ribs, but we're going to go for the big basic shapes today, and you can do more details later. This is a great one. I think, you know, they probably have this at Mona Lisa still. They might have I noticed they have a lot of Walter Foster at Swinton's Art Supply while I was there yesterday, and they deliver. So get a hold of these art stores. Help keep them stable, please. We need to fill my addiction. So, Artist Anatomy. The next one is something that is really inexpensive, but you really have to learn how to study from it. I picked this one up at Mona Lisa for $21. It is Bridgman. Now, Bridgman I can tell when someone's copying Bridgman because their drawings look a certain way, but Bridgman has a really good notation and way of breaking down and understanding the structure deeper. You can get tons of different books on figure drawing and the Atelier method, which is more from the outside and understanding light and shadow patterns. But the ones that I've shown today, I think, are the best ones for understanding more what's inside and understanding the muscles and understanding what's pulling and reading the descriptions. If you want to go that deep, you don't have to. Today, some of my notes for this class is from a really old sketchbook that I keep, but it'll be a little bit different. This, of course, is not published. Okay, let's do this bad boy. So I'm going to start with breaking down and comparing the relative proportions of all the bones, as if we're dissecting this guy. But we're going to start in the same order that I do when I teach the academic method that I teach: head, chest, hips. And so we'll work down this whole torso. And I will do my best to get out of the way because the camera can't move like a student's head. If you want to do your notes this way, please carry on. Follow along. So I'm going to start with a plumb line. Let's see where the middle of the screen is. Okay, this will do for now. Okay, my plumb line, meaning that my figure will be bisected left and right. This is the facing forward example. And to keep within my head proportions, I'm going to trace because it makes things a lot better. So I'm using a ruler, which in class is a no-no, but I just noticed my last two videos, things get a little rough because when I'm this close to the board, I really can't see how distorted things are. We're going to start with the cranial mass at the top of the head. So I'll limit the top to here. Okay, hopefully it will fit. I'm going to need 6 to go from the top of the head to the bottom of the pelvis or the groin. In terms of head lengths, that would be 4. But cranial masses are a little bit smaller. Cranial masses are the roundness shape of the head. And why I prefer cranial masses over head lengths. When the model is turned at a weird angle. When the model is, oh yeah, you can see my new haircut, the top of the head, that would be a cranial mass. When the model is turned this way, cranial mass. If you can't see the chin or the head's turned, all of a sudden you lose the ability to have a head length as your measurement. Cranial mass from the top is a round circle like this. From the side, a round circle like this. From the front, it's going to be larger than the skull because the skull has this flattened plane. Okay, so let's pretend the sphere. Okay, we can also draw boxes. I'm going to start. I hope you guys can see. I'll use red here. My first cranial mass. Okay. So that's not one skull unit. If I bisect this cranial mass this way, I get 4 pieces of a pie. Just looking to make sure you guys can see that, I hope. I hope you guys can see the red. Okay. Okay. The whole head length is 5 units tall. Okay? Those units are derived from here. If I make this a quadrant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be where the jaw is. Something like this. Jaw's kind of attached on there. Okay, so now I have a head unit, approximately, and a cranial unit. I want to just point out how the cranial unit relates to a hand length. So we say that a hand length is 3/4 the head, and it goes from the top of the head to the nose to the neck pit. We'll also see that the sternum is this length, the clavicle is this length, the scapula is this length. So even though I'm using a cranial mass, there's a bunch of things that will be a little bit smaller. Okay? On this cranial mass, we will put our nose cavity, nasal cavity right there, right at the bottom. Right where there's this bone here is going to be the bottom of our cranial mass. So I tend to float it between the teeth and the nasal bone. Right? So I try to put my teeth across here, but for this purpose, let's just put it where we have a definitive mark. This is the brow line, and so I want you to put a notation for the holes where your eyes goes, and here your zygomat. So we get the impression of a skull. We can look at the anatomy book later and draw the skull properly. So from the top of the skull to the bottom of the cranial mass, around here, and from that, one more cranial mass to the neck pit. So I'm going to line up my bowl. Put another. Okay, so we have 5 units. It's the head length. So that's for the chin. We have, I'll do these in different colors. Cranial mass. And slightly smaller, 3/4 of it, the hand. So all of these are smaller than that head length. And we're going to start breaking up the bones without actually taking Fred Astaire apart to understand these on their own. Okay? So let's keep drawing a couple cranial masses down. Right across here, right across that neck pit is where our clavicle is. This is where our chest is going to begin, right? We have our spine here, holding that head up. So, right about here, you can draw like a little trapezoid. That's your manubrium. And the way that I remember the manubrium and the sternum is that it's a cranial length, but it's a manubrium, I believe, means sword. And if you look, your sternum, the thorax, all the parts, it ends up being kind of like a tapering sword. So I've got 3 cranial masses down already. What I want to do, because the chest is 4 cranial masses, a little bit less, I want to slide my cranial masses over. So I used Robert Beverly Hale's notes in my class, and it's never drawn this way. It's always drawn through the center. But I find that putting them this way, 4 cranial mass units, makes it a lot easier to draw the proper ribcage. So, head, now chest. And I'll do it in white so you guys can see it more clear. The measurements in red. All right. So, our ribcage, it is longer than it is tall. And it scoops up towards the sternum. And it's a little bit thinner than the cranial masses, to be fair. And we're going to need this measurement as well because our pelvis is as wide as our ribcage. So it's a little bit less. And actually, I draw the oval a little bit above. From the side view, the back, where there's lungs at the back too, is higher up than the front where the neck pit and clavicle is. We are slightly, there's a tilt to it. It's not such a boxy form. When we go to our drawing, we'll learn how to separate this, and I find that there's a really good separation line here. And on the skeletons, but not my particular skeleton, it's very difficult to see here. This part here will often be made out of a different material and they'll attach at that point. It's a really good place because the bones are actually attaching there as well with cartilage material. So, if it's 4 cranial mass units, it's about a head and a half. Okay? 1.5 heads tall, or 4 cranial masses approximately height and width. So it's almost like a square. So you see the maneuvers with it. Okay, we'll move down to hips. So from the bottom of the ribs to the top of the pelvis, oh man, 1 cranial mass. Okay, 1 more cranial mass. And 1 more further down. Oh, you're just going to fit today. Okay. That's excellent. I made that work. Chest mass. Now let's look at the pelvis. The pelvis, there is 1, so the spine is going down here, kind of in the back. And it goes 1 whole cranial mass down. Whoa, right? It's quite long. And at that point, I like to draw a triangle. This triangle, which is halfway through the next cranial mass unit, is your sacrum. It's through the back where the tailbone is. So you can see on the skeleton how long that is from the 10th rib down. It's quite long. The top of the pelvis is lower than half, just a bit. Okay, so, and I like to do that the pelvis, so men and women's pelvises are different. Women's are a little bit wider than the width of the rib cage. Men's are a little bit more slender than the width of the rib cage, and the rib cage is about the width of the acromion process. So that's a landmark right there, going from the clavicle to the shoulder, but the back of that is actually your scapula. Going straight down, so you get this nice box shape. And for a man, it appears more of a tapered V. For a woman, the other way, hourglass shape. So the width of the pelvis is about the same, which is a little less than the cranial masses. And what there is this butterfly-like wing. The aces and pieces going around, and each of those is a landmark on our own body. Learning to draw these in perspective or turning is quite hard. In fact, this pelvis on this skeleton is tilted forward because of the post they put up the back to keep the spine like that. This bone right here should be more forward, right? Like a big bull, but instead he's like, it is what it is. We have to deal with it. Down here is these 2 little like eye holes. Right down here. So that's going to be at the bottom of your cranial mass. And I like to just draw it like a wedge shape at first. There's this big round area here, but this area of the tailbone, which is seeing through, is really our landmark, halfway through that cranial mass. Okay? Now, let's dissect this, because we've got our big masses blocked in. There we go, I'll just put my skull in white now. Okay. So let's start with going down the body and comparing the lengths. I'll start with the small stuff. So less than a cranial mass. There we go. Would be the clavicle bone, right across here. The clavicle. I'm going to draw it looking like a little bit like a bike handle. Clavicle. Right across here. So it goes from the manubrium and that neck pit there, right across to the acromion process. And it's a little, just put a little curve in it. Okay, clavicle. If we turn the body around and keep going down, we have the scapula. We got to do this from both sides. If I take my hand and put it on Fred Astaire's back, you'll see that it's smaller than the cranial mass. So behind here we can't see. Oops, a little more straight. Okay. It's like a little triangle shape. Scapula. Less than the cranial mass. Okay, let's go a little bit longer. So everything now is going to be a cranial mass or larger. So this is minus cranial mass, right? It's smaller, it fits within it. Oh yeah, that's why I have the tracer. Okay, we have the cranial mass of the skull. We have the length from the nasal bone to the neck pit. Now we have the sternum. So if I have my cranial mass, it really goes from the top to the bottom. Maybe I'll try to keep these in proportion. Sternum. And we can see that because it's got landmarks throughout the length and distance. All right. The chest we know as the large shape. And when we get to our drawing, we'll figure out other ways because our model is turned. So we have to look at this and how it arches up, what we can see. This here, your 10th rib is your landmark coming to the surface. I'm not going to take my shirt off right now, especially because I have a microphone on. All right, so let's go out a little bit. The pelvis is taller than a cranial mass. And let's look at, I'll put the hand in too. The hand is bigger than the cranial mass, so we're getting bigger, right, as we go down. I'll just trace my hand for now. Carpals, metacarpals, phalanges, hand. Larger than a cranial mass. The other thing that's the same length as the hand is the tailbone. The sacrum, about, so it fits in here as well. So just do it like a triangle, sacrum. And guess what? Another landmark. We can see, sometimes you can see the bottom of someone's tailbone. I wish we had tails. You can see that lump if the model's bending forward. You can really see it, and then you'll get dimples at the top, which is this bone here. The dimples at the top are also landmarks. They call them the dimples of Venus. But you can see those and line them up, and that will help you see the tilt or the perspective of the hips. And once you get that triangle there, now that we know where it is and it's going halfway through that cranial mass, you can locate the above and below parts of the pelvis. All right, so we now move up to things that are head length. So that's 5 units tall, 1 head length. And the things that are a head length, or a little bit longer, are the humerus, the top and funniest bone in the body, the humerus. So let's draw that here. 1 head length going from the shoulder down. Goes to about here. It's got a little ball at the end, little epicondyle, and then it spreads apart where the olecranon is going to sit in. So these wide, bony parts, condyles or epicondyles, and the reason we have these wide bone parts is not just strength, but where muscles are going to attach. And if you have a skeleton at home, you can see these flattened areas and ridges. That's where like the proteins of the ligaments are glued to bone material. So I've got that wide. The humerus is ahead in length, a little bit longer. Also, the radius and ulna, right? Fold this in half. Radius and ulna. So we move down. The radius and ulna will bring you all the way down to the pelvis area, that same length, where you then have your wrist. So that's 2 bones. Humerus, woo. Spelled different. When you're standing forward, the ulna is the outside. It's the more sharp feeling one. And the process of the ulna is that this bone at your wrist. But depending on which way you're standing, so I'm standing with my arm out. This bone, the radius is turning over. The bone is turning over, not a circular rotation of the hip. Of the wrist. The wrist is not turning. There's a pivot joint up here at the bottom of the humerus. So when you're studying, you need to make sure what position the hand is in, and whether or not, and you can feel on yourself that bone turning over the other one, so that you're not always drawing them to look like a Disney character's bone, which is not very realistic. We put the hand, I'll just draw here. There goes the hand there. So we have, the humerus is actually longer than the radius and ulna by a little bit. See that? We're approximating, but the total length, when you have the hand, if you bring them together at the same time, you get the elbow. So it ends up being the same length from the shoulder down. We tend to measure halfway. You can also approximate the elbow position to the belly button or to the 10th rib, right? About there. We're going to see the body in all sorts of positions. Let's break it down further. I don't have a spot to put the lower half of my skeleton on the board, but I will draw it up to the side here and just move you over, Fred, just a little bit. And I will draw the cranial masses for this, because we're getting a little longer here. So the humerus, a head and a half, a little bit longer. The ulna, cranial mass and a half, right? Let's go for the biggest bone in the body now as we move down. I hope you guys out there haven't broken this one. The femur, the longest bone in our body. The femur to the patella, to the kneecap, is 3 cranial masses. So I'll just draw the bone here. It's got this big knob and comes up. That knob goes into the hip socket. And it is not straight. This bone tapers towards the knee. So we're going to go this way. There's a little notch inside. So this is my favorite death metal name. The trochanter, the outside of that bone. That's what this knobby thing is. That looks kind of like an antler or something. And it's huge. That knob is holding on to a huge muscle. And that's why you need these little knobs, to pull the leg in, to pull it back, okay? Now the condyle here is big in bulbous. And you know when you're a kid, these are kind of like the bones you're drawing. It comes up. So I'm going to say 3 cranial masses in length. And then on top, the patella. And I don't give a length to the patella. It's so tiny compared. So anytime I'm getting smaller than a cranial mass, I don't worry about it. There's a little tiny thing here. It's just kind of floating on below. So from the knee down, we're going to be 3 more cranial masses in length. So what do we have? We have approximately, it's actually 11 cranial masses tall, 12-ish, and we kind of separate it in the middle. Whereas when we're doing head lengths, we're going for 8. And it's rare to actually see someone in these, the perfect lengths. But for our drawings, they'll be fine. And I'm sure back in the days of Titian and Botticelli, some of their characters are 11 heads tall. It's ridiculous. But it's your duty to create beauty the way that you see fit. Here, we are just studying it to get a better understanding. First, we learn what's really there. Then we want to learn to create, improve upon what we see, maybe make the leg a little longer, or if we're in a weird perspective, adjust accordingly. And finally, we want to invent completely. So you don't even have to look at a person at a certain point. You just know the rules, and you're able to apply them. So the lower leg, like the lower part of the arm, it's just ratio that's different, has 2 bones on the lower leg, the tibia and the fibula. Now I have this leg drawn, my left, and so the wider, fatter bone is on the inside to the malleolus. That's the fat one. And the skinnier one is on the outside, in this case, okay? The shin bone is down the front of the tibia. Here. You see, the skinny one is on the outside. If you reach in, you can feel that. Oh, give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. We'll fix that later. This skeleton's on loan, and now the lights have dimmed. The skeleton is on loan, so don't tell them what happened. I can't afford, these things are between $800 and a few thousand, depending on the quality of it. But you can buy a miniaturized one at the art stores, or the model shops often have them for you to study from. You can fit them on your desk there. So the 3 cranial length takes into account some of the foot height. I just want to go back to the foot a little bit. We also can look at head length. That would be also the whole foot length, which we divide into 3. The foot is 3 times as long as it is wide, ideally, unless you've got flipper feet. And here we're seeing it from the front, so we're only seeing that small third width of a head length. So you can just truncate it and draw it like a wedge, okay? Unless the foot's turned and you can see the bones. It depends what your reference is or what, in our case, our model is doing. So these guys, the tibia and fibula, are about a head length and a half in total. Okay, so you can go online and you can get something to reference this, but basically I've broken down individually the relative bone lengths and proportions of each, and I did it in like half an hour. Amazing. So what I want to do is I want to, well, I'll get out of the way a little bit. I want to transition out of theory and board notes, and it will just take me a minute I'm going to, this time, instead of moving all the camera around, I'm going to slide my drawing stuff over. So have yourself a little drink of water, take a pee, get your drawing boards out, and then draw along with me. Right. So take a little break, and I will change the situation here. Thanks to everyone who's joining me. What would I do without you watching? Hey, come on, camera. Don't die on me now. All right, there we go. I don't know why. Dun, 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 dun. Elevator music, play now. Right. Let's see here. Down. That's okay. Do you agree? We'll move my Instagrammers up now. Each of you on either side. Let's hope this works out. Thanks, Mr. Doherty. Appreciate it. Gotta know I'm doing this all right. Okay. Another minute, and I'll be ready to go here. I think I might have to move you guys some more sideways. That'll work. Here we go. Friday, what a way to spend your day. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing than drawing. Let's get this out of the way. The plugging, it's necessary. You never know who's watching. And I'm going to go sideways because I'm drawing 3 figures. We'll look at what we accomplished last week and how it applies to this week. Just going to move my reference down to here. I might zoom back a little bit more here, so you guys can see the setup. If you have downloaded these pictures, that might not be as necessary. That's the setup for me. You guys can see the reference. Hopefully my back's not blocking. Let's get down to business. So, there's cables everywhere. This is dangerous. I need to turn this laptop so that you guys can hear my voice. Oh, poor Christ, there's hand. Alright. And just hope it doesn't screech. I am mic'd. Okay, you guys are good? You're good. Alright. The light. That's the last thing. I am using natural window light here, but It needs to be lit so that it's not all shadow. We can thank Mr. Keith Springall. Before I got locked down in here, he's been leaving his light, and it has been so helpful for these videos. It's nice and soft. There we go. All right. These, I believe, are being saved on the YouTube live stream, so you can go back, visit them, pause, slow down if you need. But really, I just want to inspire you in the direction you should be going. So the next hour and 20 minutes, we're going to put in the bones. We did the forms and the shapes to see the masses and start to see where light falls. And that helps us see and locate some of these landmarks that we're talking about. Even here, I'm talking about the sacrum. We can see the ilium on the reference. And so we're going to have to use our minds here more on our X-ray vision. That was the first bit, which each one represents a 20-minute lay-in. Then the form. Now we're going to try to understand more the bones. So I'm going to take the form one off and work with this. I have already traced this onto a sheet, okay, so that I have my repaired and fixed model just outlined so that we can see where things are. Whoa, I'm on level here. What was nice about doing that is I saw that I drew the feet at the wrong angle and too big, but at that point in the drawing, maybe getting a little bit lazy. So I'm just going to line this up as best as I can. Because my proportions were a little off in some areas, it's not perfect. And I have the black and white to put aside and to point out as we go. So let's start with our side view. I hope this works out, because I think I'm going to have to zoom in again for you guys to see some of the details that I'm talking about. So we'll go like that, and my YouTube friends, I will zoom in. Whoop. Okay. I need a camera person. Does anyone have a hazmat suit and a desire to point the lens? Okay. That will just fit him. Hey guys. Let's go in tighter here. I'm going to use Wolf's Carbon so that you can see more readily what's going on. Nice and sharp. I'm going to start with the spherical shape, right, to represent my cranial mass, which we kind of do in the lay-in. This is going to become, there'll be some flat edges, because the skull, like I'm straightening it out there, is not actually round. There's a flat part at the top, more flat, and then these angles at the back. So I'm already going to put them in because I kind of know where they are. Right? I like to put flat across here. And then we have some perspective. The brow ridge, now that I'm drawing more of a skull, I'm just going to do a notation. So just a little bit, you see there's little holes on this guy, but there's this lump right here. That's what I'm actually drawing and locating. So in half from the brow to the bottom of that nasal bone there, halfway is where that ridge is. And it's further back the nose And often you'll see across the bridge someone will have some sort of break or something. So it's very clear where that is. On either side the maxilla, that bone there, we can see that shadow drop. So we're going to go, the head is at an angle like this. I'm going to go across where I can see the model's nostrils and draw a triangle essentially. And there is a little material in the middle that we can also signify our skull here. So that helps me get some of my angles established. The eyes, sockets, I'm going to draw quite straight. I've heard it explained like sunglasses. So let's draw some sunglasses here. Now we're not drawing the perfect skull yet. We're just doing location and notation. Then we can draw in all the nuances, and you can draw in things that will make it look more skeletal, and round out your corners and whatnot. You can see on the model, there's a high point on his cheek, which is above where the nose, the alar cartilage will be. And so that is the zygomat. And so we can show where that is. That's going to be this bone right here, right? It's coming straight down off the side of the eye. But we need to know where that is because the mouth emanates down from that, right? It's not round. There's huge muscles that go up here that pull up the jaw through and underneath this bone up here to where your temple is. And it's got, what, 600 pounds of nut crushing power, right? Nowhere near what an alligator has, but that's why there's such a big space in there, is for that massive muscle to be able to close the jaw and chew our food, okay? I can see where the model's mouth is, and so I'm going to put a line across, that line representing where the teeth are meeting up, right? We don't have lips on this skeleton here, on this skull, so I'll just draw some lines. I'll have to do a little Mickey Mouse job of that. And tapers in, and then the bottom of the mandible. So when I am looking at the model, I can't see very clear, at least on black and white, where the mandible is meeting the ear, but I have to use a little bit of an imagination here to imagine where the bottom corner is on the model's jaw. Often you can see a reflected light at the bottom here, bouncing up off the chest area. And so another thing to keep in mind is not only is that a little bit lighter, but it will show you the line, but also if you're painting or using color, that will also be a different color. Sometimes the color of a shirt, in this case our model, doesn't have one. Now there's a hole directly behind the mandible. That is your ear hole, right? So that hole, which I can move across between the top of the nasal ridge, across the eye, and down the same angle that it's traveling, I just put a little hole. That hole, by the way, is exactly halfway from the top of the cartilage, the helix and the antihelix, to the bottom of the lobe. It's halfway, and that length is the length from the brow to the nose, and then the nose to the chin. So this comes up in other things. We want to put the zygomat across to there, okay? So that bone goes across, and people like Iggy Pop and stuff, you can really see where the cheeks are more sucked in at this point, so you can really see the bone pronounced. Our model, we have a shadow on that, but we still have to learn where to put it, and also that puts the mouth around here. So if you come down, the mandible goes back, you get a funky looking skull so far. Okay? In this case, he is slightly tilted, so depending on what view you're at, you will want to probably draw something to just show the roundness a little bit. At the back of the skull is the sagittal crest, this little divot right here. And that's going to be, if you feel the back of your head, just behind the eye, the ear hole, and then down. Same angle, sagittal crest, and that is where the neck is attaching, but underneath. You see? So the spine, you've got to have some meat on top. So I'm going to just, for now, draw it as a column. And it's tilted. It has a little bit of a curve to it. The whole spine, I don't have the ability to show the skeleton, is an S-curve. So it's going to go down like this. So I'm going to put this whole spine in now, because it's the spine that holds this bad boy up. It goes out towards the belly button and tapers back in to where we're going to see from the side a sacrum in this case. Okay? So a notation, we'll make it like a snake for now. I'm not going to count out all the vertebrae here. At this point, that's too much going into the detail. Okay? I can see the general shape and size of the chest, and I know where that neck pit is. So from the neck pit over, I'm going to bring the clavicle. Clavicle going to the acromion process. Now, it's in front of the spine, but I'm drawing through, and that's okay. The back here, where you see this more straight line, is the back of the scapula. The scapula bends underneath the clavicle and comes forward. Now, you don't often see that, but that ends up being where the ball of the shoulder is. The ball of the shoulder. It's a little bit lower than the clavicle, where the clavicle is, because there is a muscle that goes from the top of the shoulder up through behind the clavicle and to the ridge of the scapula, which is what pulls your arm up with the help of the deltoids as well. So there's a muscle that's going in there. And we're going to draw the muscles on next time, so I want you to get these things in the most correct place you can. There's a bone that comes across here, and it goes down. Now, it's in perspective, so we're not going to see that. That muscle's on top of it, and it's in shadow. The rib cage. So I'm drawing where that oval. I could take the 4 cranial masses to height. Perfect. How about its width? It's about 1, a little bit more from the side. He's not purely from the side, so I go like that. Now I need to look at the model, and I need to look at where the chest ends. At that point, right there, I have the sternum coming down. So the sternum, the manubrium attaches at the top, at where the neck pit is, which we can see on our model, and comes down. Now we have to draw this very slender like a ribbon because we can't see all of it. And it comes to like a point, like a sword handle. Just got to get my eraser here and clean up the text. I don't like when things are in the wrong place. That's what erasers are for. Okay. Before I do the ribs, the arm is in front of the rib. So I'm going to put it on top. And the biceps is very big on the arm. And so the bone goes from the where I can see the acromion process. It generally drops straight down. And then the epicondyle curves a little bit to the back. So I can kind of see where the elbow is. Just going to put that in. So I'm looking for where those two things meet up. So now it's in front of the spine pieces. And that the ribs are actually going to cross in front of the spine pieces as well, like so. But like I said, we'll get to those later. There is the serratus major right here, which is kind of that interweaving muscle. That doesn't quite make it to the edge of the thoracic arc. So sometimes if the model is breathing in, you can see. But here are the ribs. Those are the muscles. So in this case, people get confused a lot that these things here are the ribs, and they're not. So I just want to check, make sure I'm not blocking you guys. Oh, good. And you Instagrammers? Oh, man. What? Sorry, lost my Instagram feed. Is it still going? Your video will be available soon. Okay. I don't know what happened. It's probably a limit on what you're allowed to do, right? I think there's a limit on what you're allowed to do. Okay, so let me continue on. Sorry about that. The ribs are moving towards the big handle of the sword up here, the manubrium. So I'm just going to show them going down this direction. You really have to understand form to be able to do this well, because they are turning on the body. They're not just going around, but they're coming over and down. So these ribs here attach to the bottom of the sternum, and they go this way down. So it's like this crazy cage. Yeah, we'll emphasize that one. But there's spaces between them. And you can count them out if you want. I dare you. There's this whole misnomer that, there's my ribs there, that women have one less rib. And it's like, you know, it's a Bible story too, but it's completely untrue. There are not that many differences between our skeletons. And so, historically speaking, a lot of anthropologists and stuff, a long time ago, not the scientists today, would mistake skeletons for being female because they were smaller. So if it was a smaller skeleton, it must be female, they thought. When in fact, people were just smaller in the past. So those kind of things changed with knowledge. Okay, I've got my spine coming down, and I have my hips here. Now I can see the tilt of the hips. The tilt is going this way. And the side of the pelvis, which I see the aces poking out here, and it's actually turning. So we'll show some turn, like that, and going around. Okay. Here, I've located a dimple, that little part that goes in at the butt. That's going to be for my leg, but that also tells me where my pelvis is. I like to draw the pelvis at first like a bucket, going down. Whoops, a little bit lower. It's just a lot easier that way, because then you get the roundness. And we're seeing it from the side, so we don't get the full roundness. But what happens is this thing dives back and points forward. It's really a complicated shape. And then you can kind of see the hole guys underneath. And not really the other side in this case. Directly through this drawing would be where the other side is. Okay, so we'll just go like that for now. We can definitely add to our knowledge as we go, but we can see where the trochanter is and where the ball joint is of the femur. Goes in there, comes out, and I'm going to bring it from the back area of the butt forward to meet the front of the patella. So this is the side of the patella, big epicondyle, and go up. So there we go. We can see the patella on the model, so we'll draw that little guy, but we don't need to worry about the measurement. So we've got the longest, strongest bone coming up, going into its little joint in the hip there. There's a little notch in there too. And these are all, we're going to figure out in the next class where the muscles attach. Okay? The arm in front, I will now put, I can see where the wrist is. So I'm going to put the radius and the ulna on top. Electronon, which is the elbow. His arm is face down. And so the radius is this part on the outside. And we're just going to bring that up for the ulna, and then the radius is just going across like that. So you might need your references to figure this stuff out. I will post this picture after in case you are doing the follow along. Give it on that bone. And then you could draw on this hand, you know where it is, every phalange and every carpal. I like to draw a circle where the knuckles are. Helps me place things. The bone a little too high there. Oh, there we go. Remember that the bone has to be within the contour unless it's a landmark and you're seeing it come to the surface because there's muscle on top, right? So we got to have that, and this is blocking a whole bunch of my construction underneath. So be it. So the ulna, or sorry, the radius is coming over at an angle here, and the ulna will be seen underneath it. This is the twist situation. The ulna goes right to the elbow, right? So the elbow is attached to the wrist here. That's one bone. So if you know where the elbow is, just draw down there. And then over it, you put your radius. Okay? We'll see that better in the drawing when it's cleaned up and pulled away here. All right. Spine going down and behind. We've got our pelvis established. Let's now drop the front of the shin down to the ankle, the malleolus that we can see, is the direction of the bone. So the tibia tuberosity, so the wider bone, has that triangle shape under the patella. And it's going straight down, but it's actually going, well, it's slightly curved, but it's also going to the ankle bone on the opposite side. And the small skinny one, which is on the outside and back of this bony mass, is going to this ankle bone on this side. So we can actually see in between them in this position.
we go. And in between them, there's this bone. There are a lot of bones in the foot that projects back to the back of your ankle. And for now, because we're not going to go through all these bones, just draw the wedge. And I'm just going to draw a bunch of lines going to the toes. There's actually, if you feel the outside of your foot, I don't know if you guys on YouTube can see this, there's a little bone there. He's in shadow, but it comes down off the pinky toe. So there's this little bone from the metatarsals, actually right there, that goes forward. And the foot bone, there's this one called the cuboid here, right? There's all these little ones. I'm not going to focus too much on that. There's an arc there. But this bone here that comes out is kind of where, I mean, feel it on your foot. It jabs out. And then there are 3 bones separation. So if you see the pinky toe is 1, the very end. 2 is where it often is bending from. And 3 is that longer, pointier one that you can feel the side of. So the feet are different from the hands. The feet, so this would be, on a hand it's a carpal, so carpal tunnel, right? Carpal, and then your phalanges, there's 3. But in the foot's case, it's 2 plus tarsals. Tarsals are carpals of the feet. Okay? So we want to separate. Now, I'll go back to that 1.618 stuff we might have learned from sacred geometry. So this times 1.618 is the length of this, is the length of this. So you can figure out that they're not equal distance. This one, we'll put this one. I'm just going to do them like little triangles right now. Where they fold, where you see the skin here, that's where the other bone's a little bit further than that. So if I can see that, that's where I'm going to put it. And then underneath all that are where the bones are. 1, 2, 3, 4. See all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Going this way, turning cross contour to that are where the cuboid and all those little bones are. There's a bone that comes up, and it goes between the 2 ankle bones, kind of like a hinge. Okay, this goes up. Okay, so there's my foot for that side. The other side, I can see the muscle of the quadricep coming down, bunching up in front, and it's below that where lives my patella. And I'm really only seeing a slender bit of the patella. I could probably see a little bit of the width of this bone, and it's actually rounded. But I can see, once again, now we've switched sides. I can see the malleolus, the lateral side here, and I'm going to have this bone is the wide one, because we've switched sides. So I can see a lot of bone. It's a lot bigger, and it comes down and crests. And there's lots of condyle up here. It's big and fat, and then it kind of tapers down. And through it, it's the thin bone going to the opposite side. And it's got this little here, I have this might be a little bit wide actually. There we go. Here, I have the condyle, the big fat part of the femur, and this is going to meet up to the opposite side of this, so on this side of the hip, but through here. And so I want to be sure to draw my bones that way, and they get wide again here. Nice big femur bone. going up. And if his hand wasn't in the way a little bit, we would see right through there. So I'll draw the balls and the wrist bones. Okay? Once again, use your reference for this guy. So, I'll finish off. The bone goes back from the foot and actually curves up. Okay, got bones here. Muscles. Okay. So that's essentially the lay-in process for this particular position. I can start counting down vertebrae. There's like a little bone that goes up here, a very strange one, where the thorax is. You can see the 7 cervical vertebrae. That's a big point, and you get like a dinosaur. There are all these little points that are coming off the back that the muscles are holding to, but only this one surfaces. Right? So it's like directly, I guess, across from the ab happening in this case. All right, we got a skeleton man. I don't know if you can put this paper underneath for a second, so that I don't have the drawing underneath. Okay, so this is sort of what we're after at first. I'll build out the pelvis and stuff later, but just go for the placement and try to figure out where things are. We'll drop this guy. And we look, oh, I'm right on time. Okay, now the back. In the lecture, I didn't really get to turn or talk a lot about the back and what we're going to look for. There are less landmarks on the back. So we need to get a little bit creative, and the knowledge that we will start to gain from this will help with the muscles. And also, it goes the other way. Like, you do have to learn some of the muscles in order to understand where some of these bones are living. A good example is right here. You can actually see the spine of the scapula. The muscles are attached and we get this divot. To me, it looks like motorcycle handles or something like that, or I think like deer skull, something like that. Now, because I'm drawing somewhere else, I just want to make sure y'all can see. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, whoa! This is a very precarious setup. I'm going to move you Instagrammers closer. And let me see you YouTube. I want this to look good, guys. My camera person is me. Oh, man. Okay. Look at that creepy hand there. I hope this is working for you guys and that you're going to do your homework. So, let's start again with the roundness of the skull. But the top of the skull, as discussed earlier, is more flat. Here's my skull. So I'm going to draw it that way now. The back goes to the, in an angle down, to the ridge right here. Oh, and it goes up and under. Sagittal crest. We can see the spine right here. That's the one I was talking about earlier. And so that allows us to know that the spine is going like this. Spine is going to be major in this one. We're going to have to show the curve of it and build it in the right place. And the right place is its center falls within this line. So it's on either side. Don't be fooled. This wide cylinder here, the back muscle that helps lift us upright, is the erector spinae. And the erector spinae means to keep the spine erect. So it's actually in between, and sometimes you'll see little divots there. Because back is in such a position that we have to just know it's down here because we can't see each individual marcation of the spine. So I'm just going to put the spine in on either side. And then I just want to get back to that skull real quick. Because that's where I'm supposed to be. get a little lost. This stuff is so interesting. If you have your reference, you'll start learning a lot of cool stuff. Now, you're not going to be a doctor. You're not going to be a chiropractor. You're not going to be able to prescribe anything. But you should know about this biological machine that you are operating. Maybe it will allow you to take better care of yourself, just knowing these things. So the sagittal crest is right there on him. It's above where, so the spine has the little pointies on it, and that's actually coming up to that mark, right there. So just to be a little bit more implicit. And it's in, the spine is in, on this hole, going up. This is where very important nerve endings and stuff go to your brain to communicate your entire body. So it's in from the sagittal crest. Okay? We can see the brow. So add a little bit of bone to that. And the skull is interesting from this side because it tapers back. We can see where our model's eyes. So I'm just going to put the marking for that. Halfway from the bottom of the nose to the center is the nasal bone, and it comes forward to the mouth. I can sort of see where his mouth is. So I'm going to put my teeth in, and above it, now you can see why you might want to have a skull at home. His ear and his ear hole shows me where the mandible attaches. There we go. This placement right now, make sure that it's smaller than your drawing or your outline because there's flesh on top, okay? Let's look at this. All right, down and over. Okay. We put the little bad boys there, little wiggly lines. Anyways, that's going to come up later. So I have a creepy. It's really scary when you just have that. The next thing that I see clearly is the acromion process, and I can see how the muscles are attaching to the scapula. So I'm just going to pull those over, and I'm going to draw, for now, kind of a triangle shape like that, just to get the marking in. And same as across here, so it's at an angle. I can see where it's going there, and guess what? It's meeting up to the acromion process there. This travels at an angle. This travels at the same angle. And they should be smaller than the cranial mass, of course, as we discussed in the notes. You're following here? Now, they are not attached to the next mass that we're working on, the rib cage. They're in front of, and there is muscle between it, and some people can like stick their hand right underneath that. So let's draw our rib cage. Now the rib cage is going to start in this case just below that vertebrae and come down, and you can measure 1, 2 cranial masses. You can see the side of the model's body, and you got to leave some flesh. We'll draw the rib cage there. So this side will match this side in a parallel way. This is more of his chest side, wrapping around the body. Okay, made him a little bit wide. At the back, between the scapula. It's lower. We also have an arch here, right, where the erector spine is coming up from the sacrum. The ribs dive down and around. So they come here and over, here and over. So they're curving around the body. So you need to show that. Anyhow, just put those in for now. For now, I'm going to go and do more detail and do finishing work on this, but I will run out of time if I don't continue on. Acromion process, which attaches to the top of the clavicle in the front, you can't see, and the scapula, and inside here, inside, is the shoulder. So there's a ball, this ball joint, it's in the scapula, sitting in, going straight down, and separating at the olecranon, or the elbow. Okay, so we go down, gets wider. We'll take ball for that. Okay. At the back of the elbow is the bone, which goes from this bone to the outside. So it's going from the outside of your elbow to this part of your wrist, which I can see. So I just put the bone there. Ulna. And on this side, on the top and turning, the radius. So it kind of goes in front of it in this drawing. Okay? There's a twist to the two bones. They're not running parallel, right? There's a twist because the arm is twisting. We can draw our wrist bones. Now the wrist, by the way, is there's a flat plane that goes across, but I feel like the wrist is more attached to the carpals of the hand than it is when drawing to try and get across the ulna and the radius. Treat it like the bottom wedge extension to the hand. You can see the thumb. Hey, guess what? Your thumb has 3 joints, two joints and 3 bones in it, whereas the fingers have the carpals, there we go. They have 4. So you can put those in. Just do it like that for now. Little twist. Little rib action going here. Turning around the body. Alright. Now the fun stuff. So the spine has an S-curve. Good. Hence, it's one of our drawing things. Also, that S-curve gives it strength and springiness. And so it curves in towards the belly button. And we can see those little dimples there. And those little dimples are at the back of the sacrum. The articular surface. Now, this thing's curved, okay? So we want to show, like it's a little bit more of a curvy triangle. And there's just little dots and the renders go in there. So it's like a tail, the devil's tail, or arrow pointing down. But actually, so right here where the butt cleft is, it's going under a little bit. And the hips, we will see above that, you see this line here, above that is the crest, the iliac crest. And in this case, it's turning around on the side. Okay? Just draw it like a big butterfly. Inside here is where the hip joint is. And then it's tough to tell, but because he's standing on this leg, the trochanter is pushed out. Okay, so the ball is about there, trochanter is pushed out, and then it tapers down. and then it gets wider. So where that fold is, at the back of the leg, is where this bone looks like a cartoon bone, okay? We can see through it, there's separation here, okay? And so I'm just going to draw a little bulk line. And in this case, because the outside of the leg, I can see kind of where the ankle's, that's the skin bone, the fibula. And it's straight. There's some muscle built on it. This one's pretty much straight in this case. And behind this, we go wide. Curve it a little bit. Now we can't see the ankle, but it's on the other side of this. And the bone goes straight across. So you can see a separation a little bit at the top between these. There's going to be some mass here. And on the front, the patella. Now, we have this little arch, and it goes back to the back of the ankle, and that thing is curved. And that bone I was telling you about on the outside of the foot, right there, that's a really good landmark locator for your little tiny toes. Okay. Just for now, just put the lines in. You will have a reference, hopefully. Follow on the back of the leg the Achilles tendon. Follow that tendon up. There's a slight angle to the ankles, but the foot is sitting inside that like this. Let's see if that's clear to you guys. Okay, so you can draw like that at first, but you can see each bone, and each bone is going to be the end of the tibia and fibula coming up, and it gets wide. So this back leg is higher up. So you want to keep that same distance of the bones. Because the bones, even though it's a little bit further back, there's not enough perspective at this angle to worry so much about you want to keep the lengths relative, right? But they're going to be pretty much the same. Because that leg is just so close, okay? There's that droopy area there, right? The patella's through it. And here, on the side of the hip, so he has this slant going on. There's a divot right there. And believe it or not, that is actually going to be the side, the outside of the trochanter. So the hip, as you can see, I drew it in and down because the pelvis comes in like that, and then the bone comes out and travels down at an angle. Well, an angle for this drawing. Bone is very, very straight. It's just that the legs tend to come together. So this one's slightly shorter than this one's slightly shorter than this, just because of perspective and that tilt that he has there. A little longer. Okay. At the shoulder joint, where I can see the acromion process in front being that the clavicle is there, I can put my shoulder, or sorry, my humerus coming straight down to the olecranon, which is going to be the ulna from here to here, straight. And then on this side, I have my radius. And it's slightly tilted, so the wrist is at an angle. There, now we are. Okay. Put those bad boys. And the outside of the humerus is covering here. It's inserting like that. Nuances. We'll work on those later. Okay, so now, that was relatively fast actually. I have counted out the ribs. I should make mention of those little divots down here. You can see this one. This one's on the other side. Once again, you'll see it. I did that a little bit high. You'll see it more if and when I post this finish drawing. Okay? So for now, skeletal structure. I mean, we need this next week. You know, I'll put all the ribs in here. later. We need this to attach the muscles to. In fact, I think this should go a little bit higher. Anyways, those are the little nuances I'll do when I'm not talking and drawing at the same time. A little spike right there. Okay. Last but not least, guess I'm getting faster at this. Do the last one, the hardest one of the three. I will just readjust the camera if need be. There he is. Our wonderful model, Orion. Thanks for the waves, guys. I'll get back to drawing here in a second. I'm glad someone's brave enough to watch and learn. This is not the run-of-the-mill kind of stuff, right? How often do we go this deep into anatomy? And then next week, muscles. Oh, Lord, it's going to be so much fun. Okay. Hope that's still clear. Don't need the skull, so I'm just going to put him away for a second. Oh my God! Cool. That might make a nice fashion statement. All right, creativity, right? We have 12:42, just enough time, I think, to put the bones in on this guy. I do want you guys to make an effort. If it's boring to watch, it's certainly not boring to do. You will learn a lot from this. You could also just get books like Shadowing, I don't know, Men's Health or something, and you could draw over top of them, or you could use tracing paper like I'm doing here. I'd love for you to go over your drawing, or if you have a sliding glass doors, you know, those let a lot of light in, or a glass table, and you can do this with light underneath, like an animator would. That might be a great idea. You gotta learn how to learn. These classes are just a very truncated version of what I would teach. I would definitely spend a lot more time in picking up the nuances in a regular class, but with each of these ones I'm doing on the live stream, I'm trying to offer you a glimpse into how you might go about studying to solve the problems you're having, or the areas in which you need enrichment. I will be making a future video about the books, and then I'll put a PDF on the website, and like you could click and link and learn what might be better or right for you where you are at in your artistic journey. Okay? So, a lot of this stuff is learned on the own. I mean, even Leonardo, he was cutting up bodies, I guess. I don't know if that's lucky or not. Okay, start with the skull again. It's more flat on the top, okay? And curve down. We can see the head curving back to where the sagittal crest is. A little bit lower than that straight across line that I've already established. And showing the brow. Here, we can see a little bit of the maxilla and the nasal ridge. Right there. Separated in half. So follow the wing of the nose up and around, and you'll get it. You'll get the shape of that cavity. The bone shoots out. Now, the lips add a lot of mass onto the face, so the teeth are quite a ways in terms of thickness behind. So don't go right up to the edge of your drawing there. You do need to have some thickness of skin. We can see where the ear hole is, and so the mandible is coming down at an angle. I'm going to draw it all the way in because I think it's more important than the stick. I don't know if I'm going to include the stick in my skeletal drawing. You can see down the side of the model's face where the zygomatic is. And often we use from the top of the ear to the mouth to find it. So I can draw a little diagonal there. And I've already drawn a point, but that's where the outside of the zygomat is. And also, below that is where, and across, because zygomat goes across to the ear hole, is where the mandible attaches. So maybe I do need the skull again, just to show you guys that. Right, so that's your zygomat, and what I'm saying is here, from the ear to the mouth, this diagonal is where the zygomat. The zygomat is arches. So the ear would be right here, right? And then going straight across to the side of the mouth where your lips are, which would be more below the eyes, gives you that line, right? It's like down right here. And so that gives you kind of where the teeth go, and in this case, slight diagonal. And then you shoot it back, and you can see where the mandible goes. There's huge muscles right in there. There's also a ridge from the temple. So if you have the ability to see the temple, that's where you're going to put that. That's where that is. So we'll just go with that for now. So in this case, you turn more so that you can't see the opposite side. So you have more mass at the back of the skull in that cranial mass shape. And if you have a skull, draw from it. I'm just going to draw it like that. And then, just okay. So we can see at the crosshair here and up to that, the side of the crust would be right there. We can kind of see where that vertebrae is, and so we can kind of draw where the spine goes. Okay. Now the spine is curved, but it's a little bit difficult to see where it's curved here. It's not scoliosis, but there is a slight curvature to the spine here. Slight, because there's a tilt of the hips and a tilt of the shoulder, and we're not seeing him directly back on. So just follow that center line down, but give it a little bit of a twist. Just a little bit. When going back in and drawing this more, the spine is wider at the bottom than it is at the top, up until that vertebrae. So it's like a fat snake to skinny snake, and there's those little barbs on the side. So, but first get your placement, and your tubes in the right place, so to speak. I have already kind of indicated where the chest is, so let's put that in here. Now it's going to go a little bit in front of the arm. The arm bone is going to slightly cross over it, and measure again for cranial masses, right? So it's less wide than it is tall, but it goes up to that vertebrae. Now, on the front of him, we can't see, but below and curving, microphone, is where the clavicles would be. And opposite the clavicle, also in a little bit of an angle, is the, so we call that the shoulder girdle. So it's going from the acromion process across. So what's happening is there's wideness to the top of the oval shape that we have of the ribcage, going like this. And so we need to have a curvature and a tilt to the shoulder blades here, the scapula. This one's going this way, and up, like that. Okay. Now they don't meet up to the spine. I'm just getting in the shape, but they do go to the acromion process. So don't forget about that. There is more space here. In between them, the rhomboid muscle is pulling them together at this direction, which we'll do next week. Underneath the trap. Underneath. So you can't actually see that muscle very often. Sometimes there's a way that the body can be pulled and the trapezoid's pulled really long and flat that you actually can see the striations of those muscles. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, just for now, the triangles for the scapula, right? There's a big bone, there's a big ridge here and a little nook right here. But inside and to the edge of it is where the shoulder is going to go. So you can put it below the acromion process, okay? And yeah, like I said, around the front. So we have this like long, I don't know, almost like a canoe shape, but it's, we have this giant muscle in front of it, blocking our ability to see through, but you still need to go up through. I can see my epicondyles and the olecranon on the elbow here. And so I'm just going to draw this bone. The bones are skinnier in the middle and they tend to taper out towards those epicondyles. So, you know, we draw them straight at first, but we're going to draw all these like little ridges and it'll look like bone after. What I'll probably do for this lesson to make it better is I might put this under a light table and put regular paper on top and ink it so that when I take a photo it's much more clear and I can erase out some of the mistakes and nuances for you. And then you have a good idea of if you're not putting things in the right place, right? You can see the sacrum here now. Right, well, that's our landmark, and once again, the tailbone's a little triangle. Right, we have our cranial mass which sit around that, and the spine's median edge, wider. These ribs, right, coming down like this. Let's get this arm in now. So my original arm, it looks like I was skipping around a lot. At the end of the 2 hours and all this talking, I started to lose my mind. And I'm getting there again today. But the condyles, the side part of the shoulder, of the humerus, goes down. And we can measure this. Same. And inside of that, the elbow, the olecranon, that bone attaches once again, guys, to this marker and the ulna. And this one's interesting because we can see so much of the wrist here. So in this case, the radius is just like this. The radius is not twisting. But the forearm has a lot of muscle on it. Okay? There we go. Something like that. And the elbow. All right. At an angle, carpals, right? You've got the finger bones and the thumb. You're only seeing the first phalange and then the metacarpal, or third carpals at an angle. And then, there's a little bit of there where that first one's going to go. Here, muscle, right? It's huge. It's going over where that bone is. Right there. Okay? Same for this side. Gotta go faster. The ulna, straight line, for now, radius, little bones, carpals, and this one you can see more extra curve. Just use your reference for that. Okay? Thank you. Let's get down to the wavy, gray, the tough stuff. So here at the sacrum, we have an arc on either side. An arc, the aces and pieces, the iliac crest, right? It's turning up. And then it's actually attaching here, and there's like a little circle. So we're behind now this pelvis, and this sucker comes in like this, right? Down here, by the butt, those little guys that I kind of didn't talk a lot about in the last one. And then it comes down like this. Work this area a lot. It's not easy. Inside here, to the outside or where that divot is, right there ends up being your big ball joint coming out to the trochanter. It scoops under. There's the lesser trochanter. Looks like a goofy face. And then where there is this tendon to the hamstring, you've got these two, the two big sides of the femur. Okay? I mean, it really looks like a dog bone, this one. And those are curling towards you. Then, on the outside of the leg, to the ankle, is the little skinny bone. This is the one people break a lot. Very easy. Remember that Anderson Silva in the UFC was shocking. Okay? Through there is that big triangular bone on the patella side. Tibia tuberosity. Coming down. Now there's, in between them there's that space. Big bone, right? You got your ankle. And then that little pointy bit on the side of the foot. And that breaks down to 3 bones and goes across. You've got your cuboid, you've got all these bones across the foot. Okay. We're still making all right time. Here, on the other side, we can see the widest point of the model here, and that is the trochanter pushing out. So there's this diagonalness to this bone, right? This way and this way. You can kind of see it here. We definitely see it there. And where that line goes across, or that tendon, you've got these circular bits going up. Once again, you can't see the little notch in this case. And it comes down. It goes wider. Now, the ankle on this side, and just below here, it's like that diamond shape. Straight line. Fibula, and then this guy to this side. This is quite a big bone here, so it does scoop out, and then it goes across. And once again, we can draw that ankle bone. Okay, so the ankle bone is going forward, and you can look for that little notch in the foot. He's in shadow, so I have to just know where it is. But it goes across the foot here. Just check your reference if you need to. Right? We can have X-ray vision. Imagine if there's a clear model, how crazy that would be. All they have to do is drink clear Pepsi out here, and eventually you'll be able to see through them. There'll be all that muscle and veins in the way. Okay. Well, holy smokes, 10 minutes left. I did okay. I don't know if you guys follow along or what's going on in that world there, but I'm going to go through and talk about some of the things. Our first day, we build a structure. We look for relative proportions. I'm able to, as I'm going each week, I'm able to get better and better because I'm spending 2 hours a week and I'm learning where things are wrong. Maybe I got lazy at the feet here. That tends to happen. And, oh, let me just check the screen if you guys are getting too much back here. All right, there we go. I guess that's okay. Already in the idea of a lay-in, I'm building in head, cranial masses, measurements of gut, chest, that ribcage idea, the oval, hips, and direction. So it's not a skeleton, but in many respects it has many of the aspects of the skeleton, right? I'm drawing that straight line, curved line, but just basically it's like a stick man, but filling out the form. Then we think mannequinization. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I took some tracing paper last week and we went and drew to understand under the lighting situation with maybe even one of those mannequins from the art store or the roll of toilet paper or whatnot. We try to understand the masses in the shadow. The bones, you know, you could probably do the bones next. They're rather complicated before this step because this one's about light and shadow, but I find by massaging the knowledge, we're jumping back and forth in intensity. And the next one, muscles, are very complicated. There are many parts. A bicep is two muscles. One's wider and the belly's at different places, so we have to start to understand where they're attaching. So within this mass structure, which this sort of has, right? These are what I'm thinking of learning and understanding as a fundamental drawer, as a foundational skill. You might want to do this for a while if this is the stage that you're having problems with. Then we imagine that we can see through this guy. Now, let me just stack these all up here. Whew. This tracing paper is really thin and easy to rip. Then, on top of that, we can put our skeleton. There's a distortion in that foot. I like to find where these things are because I tend to be making the same mistake in life over and over again. So we get this kind of idea. And next week, I'll ink this, and then I'll put clear on, and then we'll attach the muscles to the places they attach and talk a little bit about how they move the body. So we have side, because in the lesson notes that I do on the board, I tend to just do front on. We have back, because it tends to be understudied and not understood as, I have to fix this. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I shut that up so hard. Bad bunny. Okay, so this one, we've got some perspective, some contraste, very interesting look. We have the skull from both sides. We have the skull in 3/4, and then when we do the notes, we do the skull from the front. We don't need to do the skull from the back, I don't think. But this is really covering a lot of things, and our model drawing is so lean. We're going to have an opportunity to really be able to see and understand the models, more so than on a female, because you can't sometimes see where all those things are attaching. You need someone really lean for that. So I will go through, I will finish off this drawing. I'm giving myself 2 hours of homework. I think that's how long it will take. But you should have, coming along, something really interesting. Use reference, because you probably don't have, I didn't even look at my skeleton this whole time. I probably should have. If you have a skeleton or a model of a skeleton, this will be much nicer for you. Let me put this guy back up. I hope you're finding this interesting, if not super duper nerdy. But by the end, we'll have muscles on it next, and then we'll draw the big flat planes and areas of shadow, light and shadow. So that gives us more volume to the muscles, and we'll be referring to John Assaro's work and the Assaro body, and like how the muscles are kind of chain linked together. And then finally, so that's like three more of these. Finally, we'll just draw it and shade it as we see it, understanding all these fundamentals, being able to talk about landmarks and some bones and some muscles and some proportions. And that, my friends, is a lot of stuff to cover. I hope that you've enjoyed your time with me so far. I'm going to turn around. I am tired already. I think Bunny needs a coffee. I haven't eaten yet today, so that's another thing. Thank you, Instagrammers, for toughing through, joining me. There's so many things you could be doing. I'm going to say ta-ta for now. And if you guys can like, subscribe to the website, leave comments, give me feedback, share your drawings and tag me. That's greatly appreciated, because right now this poor place is living without you. I made this little sign so that I can remind myself that it's not just me in my studio. Atelier Artista was an art school that was built for you, which is why I'm keeping my connection to you through these free lessons. Please also join me Wednesday night. I will talk more during my drawing session now, because a lot of people have been requesting to see inside my mind. It is distracting to talk when you draw. But whatever is helpful for you guys in the time that we are away from each other, because I miss you, and I hope you keep up your skills, and I look forward to us getting back together and making art again in this big empty room. Ta-ta for now. Ciao.